My name's Jonathan Wyner. I started life as a musician. Over the course of the last X number of decades, I've had an opportunity to work as a mastering engineer and an owner of a multi-room mastering facility. Started mastering records in 1985. Before that, I was mixing and producing and engineering records. I still do some of that as well. Director of Education for Isotope, which is a manufacturer of tools to help people in audio post, and music production, and other sort of related disciplines. We make noise reduction tools and restoration tools and tools to help people with capture and mixing and mastering as well. And I also am a professor of music production and engineering at Berklee College of Music.
So part of something that I think is really important to connect with individuals in the industry is, they see people in the industry and they're like, oh, that could never be me. I can't become a mastering engineer. Or would you be willing to share like a brief summary of your story of how you transitioned, or how maybe some things that stand out to you?
Yeah.
How it transpired for you?
Well, the thing that you just said about that feeling of, you have somebody who's doing something that looks interesting to you, whether you're an artist who wants to become a successful artist, or in almost, any creative discipline especially. I think that's just such a common experience. You see somebody out there and it's like, wow, how could I become that person? How could I be successful in that way? For most people, it's just about, how can I sustain a livelihood doing something that I love and that helps me be creative and help people. I think one of the things that a lot of people don't realize is that everybody who's successful has been in that position before. I think, in the arts in general, and certainly in music and music production, I think everybody's a little bit of a misfit when they start out. And
I agree.
And I think by definition, when you start life that way, it feels a little bit more challenging. It's not like, oh, I can go to school and get an accounting degree and become an accountant. There's like a clear path. These days, there are schools and programs that are more focused and sort of create a sense of a discipline that is a little bit more formal than what we used to have. But even so, I think, for a lot of young musicians who are technically inclined, they're not necessarily wanting to go to school. They don't want the formal education. They want to sort of dive in and do this thing that they're inspired to do and that gets them excited. So I totally sort of get that, and I can easily put myself back in a younger version of myself and remember feeling that way. And so today, I kind of pinch myself that I've been able to continue to sustain doing what I've been doing, and had the experiences that I've had. There is no secret at all. I mean, I'm a firm believer in, there are a few basic traits that I think are really important, like showing up, showing up on time, knowing how to treat people, being interested and curious, and then it really is perseverance. I've done so many different things, and all those things have been a result of just new opportunities that have presented themselves. It's not like I had a plan 30 years ago to say, I'm going to be a successful mastering engineer. In fact, I didn't know what mastering was in 1982 when I started doing this work. Or I'm going to become a professor, or blah, 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 blah. It's just, or I'm going to work on this artist's record or that artist's record. It's something that happens along the way.
You've obviously been in the industry a good bit and have transformed into multiple different layers. And even myself, over the past couple of years, I've been introduced to different things I've never even thought about. And I think that's important for different individuals. You look at, from the outside, you're like, oh, I want to be an engineer, an artist, or a musician. And then when you're subject to the industry, or you go to AES, and you walk around, you see, wow, there's many different aspects of that. Are you still finding new things that are keeping you creative or trying to be involved with, or are you inspired by anything new that's happening within your own circle?
I mean, again, like a core value statement for me is I love working around people who are pushing the boundaries of whatever it is that they're working on, whether it's in terms of musical vocabulary and musical language, doing something innovative and interesting and new. The same can be said in and around music technology. There's something. So 30 years ago, we underwent the beginning of this revolution from an analog sort of media to digital media. And along the way, what we did was we kind of reinvented the analog domain on a platform that really wasn't well designed for that. I mean, tape machines kind of evolved in response to the technology that was available at the time. Computers were then, these systems were created to mimic that. And computers are not well suited to work in the same way that tape machines and large format consoles do. Especially you try to mix 150 channels on a laptop, and oh my God, it's like. So one of the things that is exciting to me is thinking about new ways of interacting with audio. We have new technology that allows us to interact with technology in new and different ways. That's really fun and interesting, and to think about what new possibilities exist. Yeah, I remember when MIDI started. I was actually out at the recording workshop in Chillicothe, Ohio, in 1983 when this happened. And, a lot of people were looking at it thinking, oh man, now everybody's going to be a string orchestra on a keyboard, or, trying to use MIDI as a way to replicate something that already existed, namely the orchestra. And I thought what was cool about it is now I can take my trumpet and I drilled the mouthpiece with a pickup and into a pitch to MIDI converter, and I can play an orchestra with my horn and mash up the two sounds and the articulations, and I have something totally new and different. So there are versions of that are happening now. If you look at something like the Mimu gloves, which are sort of gestural tools that we can use to interact with DSP, sort of new ways of leveraging the power of DSP and the way we can connect with that power physically and develop new interactions with sound. I guess that's the best way to put it. That's really exciting and interesting to me.
Do you think that's the future of audio, like things like that?
You want me to get, I'm smiling because I can't tell you. If I did, I'd have to kill you.
Yeah.
No, there's no single answer.
Yeah.
But
it's always changing.
I personally, I love if you have an object that's designed to do something really well, like a fork, right? It does that one thing really well. We used to have that with musical instruments. We have that. We used to have that with consoles with tactile surfaces. And then we migrated into this sort of QWERTY keyboard and a screen. That's joyless. I would love to see new versions of things that are designed to suit the activity and allow us to elegantly navigate, and perform the task that we're trying to do in a way that fits our human form, our human bodies. So that's something I focus on. That's something that I find interesting. Whether or not there'll be wide-scale adoption of that idea, I don't know. We're at Isotope, we're doing a lot of thinking about cloud processing too. Cloud is sort of an interesting, distributed processing is a really interesting idea where you're no longer limited by the number of cores or whatever you have right in front of you. The internet is your DSP farm. What kind of possibilities does that open up? It's sort of, yeah, you just shook your head like, oh yeah, wow, that's kind of mind-blowing.
What about like machine learning?
Yeah, well, what about it? It's really interesting. It's really interesting to think about how neural networks and machine learning fits into a creative endeavor. There are ways in which it's brilliant at helping people navigate certain kinds of challenges that they struggle with, because it can provide insight into everything that we're doing in a way that, it's not easy to come by. I'll give you an example. If you take 1,000 songs and feed them into a neural network and have it learn the spectrum, like the distribution of frequency from low to high, and you average that out, it gives you some general sense of what well-balanced music looks like, and then you can compare what you're working on against this averaged version. And you couldn't do that without something like a neural network, something that could basically compile all of that data and immediately give you a visualization that can allow you to relate to this information. Anyway, I think it's cool. I think it's interesting. I think it can help facilitate a lot of the work. I think it's also not a substitute for the sort of creative impetus, and it's not a substitute for decision making. When we're doing creative work, our sort of understanding of a context and things that we want to try or do, that comes from us. So I see tools that are informed by machine learning as being, tools. They're helpful tools. I mean, the hammer doesn't make the chair, right? The person conceives of the chair and designs it, but then the hammer is really, really a helpful thing to put the nail in where you want to put the nail in.
Kind of like the same concept of like capturing the performance rather than just, someone standing there and recording and over, like overdubbing a part, kind of capturing the performance and the creative aspect of it.
But there's some cool thing. I mean, imagine you wanted to record a vocal and you wanted something about, you loved Beyonce's delivery. You didn't want to make the pitch of your voice sound like Beyonce or the timbre, but you wanted her cadence. Mm-hmm. Could a neural network figure out how to do that? That's kind of an interesting way to mash up two ideas. And again, I think it's something that augments our capabilities. That's what's most exciting to me about it.